a single car team.
Brad Keselowski won this race.
Daytona 500. And Delano, there are the Wood brothers. Oh my goodness. First win in 10 years.
Side by side. Come on, Norm. Hangs on.
Norm was not going to be denied.
And we did it. Yeah!
Hey, how y'all doing? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Also Ram broadcast. We are super excited that you're joining us once again, spending some of your valuable time with us, a couple of knuckleheads, just to kind of learn a little bit more about whatever we got going on, whatever's going on in the motoring community. Today's special guest is Norm Benning, and to help me bring Norm on the show.
Hey, I'm stealing y'all away from other Derek for a second so I can tell y'all about our brilliant sponsor, Gray Before Shave. Gray Before Shave offers everything you could possibly need for your hair up there. They've got oils, balms, butters, they've got waxes for your mustache, shampoo, conditioner. There's so much stuff, I don't have the time to sit here and tell you about everything. Head over to their website, graybeforeshave.com. See something you like, take it to the checkout. Before you check out, apply the code ALSO-RAM for 15% off your purchase. If you're undecided on which scent is right for you, they have an excellent bundle of oils that has one of each of their brilliant scents. I prefer the Pumpkin Smash. My wife absolutely loves their brand new Liquid Gold. It smells like adult bubble gum. That's the only way I can think to describe it. So head over there, graybeforeshave.com. Find something you like, check it out. Use our discount code ALSO-RAN for 15% off. You won't be disappointed. Now, back to that other handsome bearded fella.
I've got a buddy, Producer Josh. Producer Josh, say hello to the people, sir.
What's up?
So, I know I was excited to have Norm on, and we got this interview. What gets your juices flowing about Mr. Benning, sir?
Well, I found it very entertaining to hear all the stories. It's especially astonishes me how long he's been doing it. Since you guys will see later in the interview a picture of him at Daytona in front of I believe he said it was the ARCA car in 1989, and so he's been killing it ever since. He's somebody that has kind of been taken in as, you know, kind of a piece of history. I'll show later on the highlight reel that we have on the intro of him battling at Eldora, and just to see people's reaction, even just the drivers watching him, cheering him on in the pits, in the garage area of Eldora. And hearing that story about how much everybody banded together to help him continue to race after he pretty much ruined that car just to get in, just at a heat race. He had to finish fifth, and to hear that, how much everybody kind of gave him the love and support and gave him the elbow grease so that he can continue to race into the main, you know, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, Norm is definitely a special personality in the garage, and anytime he can get on track, I look forward to seeing him run, just because he's doing it for the passion of it. I asked him during one of our phone calls, if he ever thought about stepping into the team ownership role and putting somebody else behind the wheel of a truck or car, and he's like, no, not at all. That thought never crossed my mind. As long as I am able-bodied, as long as I can put a truck together and get a truck or a car to the track, I'm going to be the one behind the wheel. So I hope that happens for him. You know, he pretty much made it sound like they were going to have to drag him out of the truck kicking and screaming when it was time for him to stop. And I do not see a reason why that is not too far from the truth at all. Since you're here with us, why don't you please do us a favor, do us a solid, help us fight the savage algorithm beast. Help us tame it by liking and subscribing, commenting for us. Let us know what we're doing wrong, what we're doing right. What do you think we could do better to help you enjoy our show more? And if you're listening over on the audio realm, make sure you rate and review. So Without further ado, we've been trying to get Norm on for quite some time. He was one of the first drivers that I thought of whenever we came up with the concept to have the Also Ran broadcast. So, if you don't have any issues with it, let's go ahead and bring Norm on for the people, for the fans, the boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Norm Benning. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Also Ran broadcast. The man whose truck and his struggle and fight to make the race at Eldora is one of our opening clip credit scenes. Mr. Norm Benning. Norm, how are you doing, sir?
Very good. Getting ready for the big storm.
Yeah, you're up north in Pennsylvania, and y'all have frostbite warnings out. That's something I didn't even know existed.
Yeah, they say 30 seconds you can get some frostbite with the way the wind's blowing and everything. And they're saying it's going to be 15 to 20 below zero with the wind chill.
That's kind of
12 to
ironic.
18 inches of snow.
It's very ironic considering the last time most of the NASCAR world saw you. You were behind the wheel of a truck that had decided to spontaneously turn into a comet on the backstretch of Talladega. How have you been doing since then?
Well, went to Martinsville a week after that. I had a burn on my arm and my leg, and it's just unfortunate. The connecting rod broke. The engine wasn't. There was an electrical issue with it, and it would run wide open, but it wouldn't run part throttle. Under cautions, it was missing pretty bad, and I guess at some point I compromised one of the connecting rods, and it decided to exit through the bottom of the engine and dump 16 quarts of oil over the racetrack and caught on fire. Ruined my day.
Norm Benning looks
yes,
big fire. Caution.
Like he, quite literally blew an engine here, Michael.
Yes, he did. Caution is out for the 7th time today. Get it stopped.
Big fire. Gets
What a scary moment.
Oh, you see the extinguisher just went off. Yeah, so there's an onboard extinguisher in these race trucks that goes off when it gets hot enough, and it was hot.
I had the second fastest lap in that race that day and had high hopes. But then the connecting rod failed, and that was that. And I was lucky to get out of there without more burns.
Yeah, we were talking before the show. There's safety devices that NASCAR hasn't mandated, and it's pretty much the driver's options on how to prepare themselves as far as pre-race. And you told producer Josh and I that you were wearing a helmet sock, whereas the last big fire we saw at Talladega, Jordan Anderson was not. Is that something you want to take a second to just kind of tell our fans about and other drivers about how his accident with fire was different from yours and how he suffered injuries you did not because of that?
Yeah, Jordan had a head sock on, and first of all, I don't really like the head socks because your helmet moves around and the head sock will work its way down over your eyes, and you're constantly fighting that. But the head sock is on your skin, on your neck, and when that fire hits that sock, it's not going to help you with fire. I've been wearing these, as you call it, a helmet sock, since I've raced dirt, and I used them for a couple of different reasons. The other reason was flying rocks. Those things will tend to slow the rock down before it hits you hard in the neck. And in that fire at Talladega, I had the fire coming through the dash, through the shifter boot, through the side window, and I believe that I'd have been severely burned on my face and my neck if it wasn't for that helmet sock or bib, whatever you want to call it. I'm advocating for everybody to wear them. I was explaining it all to David Green, so we'll see how much influence I have in NASCAR, but it's a whole lot safer with that thing on than without it, because the fire doesn't get to your skin. It's 4 or 5 inches away from your neck, and it's just great. It's a great safety device in a fire or rocks or whatever it might be. And we'll see what kind of influence I have on NASCAR next year, see if everybody has them. I remember talking to Casey Mears at Martinsville, and he came over to see how I was doing, and I told him about that. And when I was done talking to him, he said he was going over to get one. Because if you talk to people, it makes a lot of sense. That distance between that bib hanging down in your neck is enough to keep the fire from getting to you. But Jordan was trying to get out of his truck too. I don't know what the deal was there, but I got the thing stopped as quick as I could, and then I got out of the truck, and I was a little worried too that people were going to, where I stopped, there was oil all over the racetrack. I was really concerned somebody was going to lose it in the oil and come down and hit me while I was getting out. But fortunately, that didn't happen. But it was by far the biggest fire I was ever in, and I'm really, really just disappointed at the engine failure, the Omar engine. So we've had to replace it.
So how is that going? How is your truck prep for Daytona working out?
Pretty much ready to go now. We got to pick up the engine here this week and get it in there, and go into the chassis dyno and the pull down rig, and we'll be all set for Daytona. So
I'm glad you got Daytona coming up. So, and you had the truck fire. One of the other highlights from your career, which I showed, I'm going to be honest, I had no idea who Norm Benning was until all the talk and the hype around the Eldora truck race. NASCAR's big return to dirt since I think 1970, and I had no idea who Norm Benning was. I hadn't seen I hadn't seen a race on dirt in a handful of years, and suddenly you are the star of the show, and everybody and their mom was suddenly, everybody except for the gentleman in the Dodge Ram 68 truck was a Norm Benning fan, and his fans, I'm sure, were kind of hoping you were a little bit slower. But what that weekend, that highlight, I mean, we've got it as an intro to our show because it is ultimate also ran moment, and from my understanding, Tony Stewart still has that truck at Eldora to this day.
Yeah, after the race was over and I brought it back home, my phone started ringing. Everybody wanted to buy that truck, and I actually put it on eBay, and it went crazy on eBay. And then within 24 hours, Tony Stewart called me, and trying to think of his name, this old manager of the track, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "What are you talking about? You can't sell that truck. It's a piece of history." He said, "I need it bad, so I'd really like to buy it off you and get it over here." And so now it's enshrined in his museum over there forever. And he told me just take the seat and the fuel cell and engine out of it and don't touch it. It has the same tires, same mud, same dents, everything on it, and it sits up there, and it's so cool that it's enshrined there forever, I guess.
For fifth. Here comes Norm Benning trying to make it into the most historic truck race he's ever been a part of. In front of this pack, the 54, but the slide job once again by Greenfield. Can they hold on? They're door to door, side by side.
Come on,
Benning
Norm.
hangs on.
Woo.
The final transfer spot.
Norm was not going to be denied. That's what I'm talking about right there. And that's what you're going to see when they have the final 40 laps here at Eldora. You can hear the crowd. They're louder than they've been all night.
The crowd, as that pack was coming out of turn number 4, jumped to their feet. Their arms were in the air.
Yes! Yes, that's how we felt in the booth, too. You love seeing somebody fight for something he believes, and that's exactly what Norm did.
So speaking of being a piece of history, you yourself, Norm, you are a piece of history as far as NASCAR goes. You've been around for quite some time. For the fans that don't know who Norm Benning are, the fans that are like I was before I saw you run in that Eldora race, can you just kind of give us a little Norm Benning backstory, let people know how long you've been in the sport, and use the opportunity to make some new fans that haven't watched Norm Benning make laps before.
Well, my father raced. He's in the He's in the Hall of Fame here locally, 5-state area, tri-state area, and he had a lot of success in dirt late models and some asphalt late models, but he never did get to that level, Daytona, Talladega. But it was in my blood, and my first championship was a figure 8 championship. I won 14 out of 17 of the races, and then I ran dirt, semi-lates, and then this guy, Reggie Vasco, could see I had some talent, and he hired me to drive his dirt late model. It was a Rayburn chassis, and we went out the first night and won the race, lapped the field all but the first 3 cars, and went on to win a third of the races. So it kind of showed what I could do with really good equipment. And, and then I went on to run NASCAR modifieds, Shangri-La and Oswego. I also fly airplanes, so I used to fly up around a little airplane and go race, and had a lot of fun with that back in the Jimmy Spencer days and Mike McLaughlin, and then I decided to do this ARCA and NASCAR stuff, and had a lot of fun in ARCA for a long time. I'm running the dirt, like DeQuoin and Springfield, and finished third there twice behind Tony Stewart and Kenny Schrader. But I've never had the major money. I had Sobe, which was my biggest sponsor ever. And the year I had Sobe, we were up to third in the points and ended up finishing 5th when I had a really nice budget. And I also had Shodine Holmes back in the days when I ran the Cup races. I ran a bunch of those 125s, 150s, and then the Winston Opens, which don't have points. So they're not really listed as Cup starts for me. It's kind of aggravating, but I ran a bunch of those. And then the trucks came along, and I wasn't really excited about it when they first came out, but then I got involved, and the guy asked me to drive his truck, and had a lot of fun with it. And then I just went and got my own stuff, and we've had some success. But again, it's always on a limited budget, so you're only as good as your equipment, and that's the sad part about it. But I do have really good super speedway stuff. Always have. And the last few years at Daytona and Talladega, I've been right there, and we're planning on going to Daytona here in a few weeks and see what we can do again.
And if you've been, you have been a fan favorite ever since. I know most of the people I know who aren't bandwagon fans, and here on the Also Ran broadcast, we try, it's going to sound like I'm being very negative to the bandwagon fans, and there's nothing wrong with being a bandwagon fan. You need fans to watch the sport. You need butts and seats to keep the sports going, to keep interest in the sport, to keep the sports relevant. But, how much does it mean to you when you show up to a race and you have all these people that are still rooting for you and pulling for you and wishing you luck and hoping to watch you run well? Like, what does that mean to you to this day?
Well, every time that happens where I actually get people's attention, it's a huge success for me, because I don't have new equipment. I use stuff, and I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember when a group qualified at Daytona about 5 years ago or something like that?
Oh yeah.
And I ended up on the pole. I hit the pole at Daytona with bragging rights, but then Tim, I can't think of his last name, got into my right front a little bit and going in the corner, so I got a little scratch, and I couldn't go out second round to defend that pole. And that was heartbreaking, but I had just a little scratch. I don't know. Timothy Peters, he just went into the corner and came. He said I came up. I say he came down. Doesn't matter. But I sure as heck didn't want to hang up my. Yeah, but it caused me to not be able to go out second round. But I can remember, Kyle Busch was probably 5 or 6 stalls up, and I'm sitting there on the pole, and all the media people were talking to me, and I happened to look up, and that times like that are great. To go to the Super Bowl, the biggest race of the year, and be on the pole till the second round anyway. And then that's bragging rights.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back then you mentioned the group qualifying. Back then, that was the best thing to come out of that was a situation like with yourself being on the pole momentarily there. I think they had group qualifying when Brad Kozlowski was able to help his brother Brian make the race. I think I'm not sure if it was Cup or Xfinity. I know it wasn't Truck Series, but that was a big deal. How much has the camaraderie in the garage area meant to you over the years too? All these guys willing to, because when you got beat, your truck got beat up when you were racing your way into Eldora, and next thing you know, you had everybody and their mom showing up trying to help you get that truck together.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. And Kenny Schrader come over to me, put his arm around me. I'm in the middle of an interview. He said, "Norm, I know you're enjoying all these accolades." He said, "But have you looked at your truck?" And then he laughed. He says, "We're taking it to my hauler. It'll be ready for the race." And I can remember, my crew couldn't even get to the truck. They were 3 deep working on it, and some of the really big name crew chiefs were working on my truck, and it was just so exciting. I used to do it every Saturday night, race like that. I didn't think it was as big a deal as it was, but Clay Greenfield was, he tried really hard to beat me, but it ended up working out pretty good for us. But there was really nothing left for the main event. The rear end housing was bent, the right front frame rail was bent, so I didn't have anywhere near as good a truck for the main event. But it was still fun to. Tony Stewart, when I pulled in after that qualifying race, he stuck his head in the window. He said, "Norm, doesn't matter what happens the rest of the night. You just made this whole thing a success." Yeah. And he gave me his hat.
I can't even, I was going to say I can't even remember who won the race, but I remember who won the race. I think it was Austin Dillon got the first win on dirt. But, you were definitely the highlight of that show. And you mentioned Clay Greenfield. Y'all had a chance to actually talk several years later. How did that conversation go?
Well, actually, in February at Daytona, we got together, took some pictures together and everything. We're fine. His wife, she came over and says, "You guys better bury the hatchet. It's been a long time." And I said, "I don't have a hatchet. I made the race."
Yeah. Tell him he's got the hatchet. He's got to do something with it. That's not me.
But he wanted to be in that race as bad as I did, and I just ended up, it was a hell of a battle. I mean, there were people in the stands in 3 and 4 there, and they came down after the race and they said, "When you hit that wall, we felt the thump in the grandstands," because I had to get up against the wall to keep him from spinning me around. But it was exciting. I mean, and I knew I was in that last position there, 5th place, and I wasn't going to give it up. He was going to have to wreck me. So
how long, you've been doing it for quite some time. How long before you can actually break James Hilton's record? Because I think he holds a record of being the oldest gentleman to start a NASCAR race. And I couldn't tell you his age with that record. Is that something that you want to do just to kind of?
No, it's something I don't think about. I work really hard. I work out. I take care of myself, and I'm a commercial pilot too, so I have to take care of my health for that reason. And I fly, do some instruction and everything else. And so if the FAA thinks I'm okay, NASCAR certainly should.
How did you even get into that? That's something that you had mentioned before, and I saw it on your Wikipedia page. How did you even get into the commercial flying?
My uncle was a pilot in the military, and then he got a job. He was chief pilot for Alcoa, and that's what got me started. I got my private license and just worked my way up, and I flew with corporate jet, mine safety. I never flew commercial airlines, just corporate stuff.
I actually had the opportunity to talk to some of the guys that you brought to the track with you at Talladega. I was very blessed and fortunate to have passes to get into the garage area, and one of the first things I wanted to do was go check and see how you were doing. And all the guys around your truck, very down to earth. As a matter of fact, we were walking up to your truck, and I got a piece of your truck in my room over here. Not much. It was just like a piece of paint or wrap or whatever that had fallen off from the front fender. But are those the same guys that that were with you at Eldora, or do you just kind of piece together whoever's willing to go with you?
I have 4 or 5 guys that are pretty regular, and I don't really like having a whole lot of people. It just gets confusing that way, and can't keep track as well of what's going on. So I have my core groups 4 or 5, and then there's, depending on where I'm at, there's usually 2 or 3 more that come in. But that's about it.
Now that's something too. So basically trucks would be your step up from the ARCA series. From your perspective, is there a huge difference between what you're doing in trucks and what some of the other guys are doing in ARCA that are kind of share a similar situation with you, where they're showing up and they maybe have a smaller hauler than the other guys and just a group of ragtag guys that they brought with them from their hometown?
Yeah, like I said, I do what I can, and like I said, our super speedway stuff is really good. My intermediate stuff is old. It's actually an old Harvick truck that I have right now. You just can't compete, and the tire bills on the intermediate tracks are very high, and so the basic things that you need, we don't have enough of, so you can't be very competitive, and you just do the best you can. But I really look forward to Talladega and Daytona and the short tracks. I have a lot of fun.
If you could cherry pick, now we're going out and I don't want to call it fantasy land, but if you could win at any track, if you're choosing, which track would you be most proud to have a trophy for on your shelf?
Daytona.
You could Daytona. Yeah.
I've been going there. I remember sitting in the stands 10 years old and turned 4, and I kind of grew up down there. And I have a house down there, and it's kind of like my second home.
So this pick that Josh keeps bringing up, producer Josh is working his magic in the background. That I think that was the 1990 Daytona, where you ran the Aero Coupe. So what was that your first time that you ran there, or?
Yeah, I actually that car I ran in ARCA afterwards, and I actually and Kenny Schrader was there in Atlanta, and I ran that car, and in practice I had the pole. I went out to qualify and burn a piston because there was a little pinhole in the fuel line. My first time I ever went to Atlanta in ARCA.
Now, I'm looking at that picture, and one thing that kind of sticks out to me, how far back is that spoiler leaning? Was that pre-qualifying, just all out spoiler back as far as they'll let you have it, or?
I had the crew chief there that was, he's kind of a big time crew chief. And you were allowed to do whatever you want. I was down to 10 degrees, and I came in. I said, let's lower it down to 5. And he went crazy. He said, you're going to kill yourself. I said, no, it feels good. Because when I first went out to Daytona, this Tommy Gill, I don't remember him or not, a long time ago, he was from around this area. And he said, listen, Norm, whatever you do your first day, don't try to run that thing wide open. And I went out the third lap, and I ran 186 miles an hour and came in, and he wanted to choke me. I said, Tommy, it felt good. I didn't see any reason to lift. You're going to kill yourself. And so we just kept lowering the spoiler and lowering the spoiler. And then he threatened to leave if I went any lower with the spoiler. He said, I don't want to see you kill yourself. But it felt good to me.
So where did you actually get that car from? Because a lot of people, like a lot of the newer fans, may not know those Monte Carlo Aero Coupes. They were around for a couple of years, and that was stuff like you'd see Dale Earnhardt Sr. and Tim Richmond before he left the sport for reasons. Tim Richmond ran the Aero Coupe. They had Pontiac Aero Coupes that Rusty Wallace would run. I mean, so how did you manage to get into that car?
Well, I actually bought it from somebody else, and that wasn't even a thoroughbred race car. It wasn't built at Holman and Moody or anything. It was a copy of one. Frank Perpetua was my crew chief, and he was pretty good friends with Holman and Moody and his people. And he really, really made that thing handle. It was fun to drive. And that's how I met Schrader. He came over. He said, who are you? I said, nobody. He said, damn or not. He said, you're the fastest car out there. And I said, I don't even know where the groove is. He said, no. He said, we don't know where the groove is because you're the fastest car. And I'm telling you, Harry Hyde came over to talk to me. You know, the most famous crew chief ever. That's how far back it goes. But, you know, I really didn't know what I was doing. I just drove it the way it felt good and ended up being the fastest car there.
Yeah. You say Harry Hyde. I know exactly who you're talking about. Harry Hyde was a crew chief for Bobby Isaac when he won his championship. Went with Bobby Isaac with the wing car out to the Salt Flats to set all the speed records, many of which still stand. Then he went over. Eventually, he found his way over to Hendrick Motorsports and was a crew chief for Tim Richmond when he won all his races. And, you know, for people that are cinematic movie buffs, he was the crew chief that Harry Hogg was.
Right.
That's where the inspiration for Harry Hogg came from. So yeah, he's very, very well respected crew chief to people that knew who he was. So that's amazing that he would come up to you and kind of give you.
Yeah, he said the exact same. He said, "Who are you?" I said, "Nobody." Yeah, you're somebody. It was funny.
I sent Josh a picture of this car on dirt, and I'm not sure. I'm not that familiar with anything enough to know when is that and where is that and what kind of car is that.
That's the World Dirt Track Championship in West Virginia.
Okay.
And there were 136 cars there, and I was on the pole.
Nice. So where'd you wind up finishing in that thing?
Well, that's a bit of another story, but my owner got drunk the night before the race in my crew, which was a big mistake. They changed it. They decided to check things, and the master cylinder was a little low, I guess, on brake fluid. So and you can go in all night long. The infield was open. They had pigs in the ground. They were cooking pigs and all party for 3 days. And they poured brake fluid in the master cylinder, and that paper gasket in the lid fell in the master cylinder. And it basically caused my brakes to go away. So I lost my brakes, but we had by far the fastest car there. And I showed up with windows in the dirt car. They came out with rules after that, but I had front, side, rear window in that thing. I remember Purvis and Moran and all those people, they sent all their crews out to get licks in because they thought that's why I was so fast. But I was the guy that kind of started that rear steer stuff.
Okay.
And they're still not doing it the way I did it. But that was a great, great car. And then we took that car down to Volusia County in Daytona and went out the first night and won. And but that was Reggie Vasco. He owned that. We had a lot of success together.
All these different cars, all these different tracks that you run over the years. Corey LaJoy likes to ask on his show Stacking Pennies when he has a guest on, if you could have one car and run any track, what would that be? So for somebody, as mature as you, haven't done as much racing as you've done, do you have a track? Let's take Daytona out of the equation because we know you want the hardware from Daytona. So let's take Daytona out the equation. Any other track other than Daytona or Talladega, and it can even be a small track, a hometown track that you raced at, in the early days. Any car, any track, what would Norm Benning spin his... Let's just say it's your time to go. You live to a ripe old age of 168, right? We're going way out here. So Norm Benning passes at 168 years old. You get up to heaven, and heaven is a racetrack, and there's a car parked right there on the front stretch. What are you turning your laps in, and where are you turning your laps at?
Well, I might still do that. I love running dirt late models, and Pennsylvania Motor Speedway, in my opinion, is one of the best dirt tracks in the country. Of course, Eldora is right up there, but Pennsylvania Motor Speedway is a 5/8 mile high bank track. And again, I won a third of the races I entered there. So I'd like to do that again before I quit. Go out and run the dirt late models.
And that would be it, just any kind of dirt late model, or is there a specific dirt late model that you set up one day and it was just on rails? You could kick it as sideways as you wanted, get up in the get up in the cushion and it would just hook up and go?
Well, that car, that number 11 car, was exactly that. We could run right up against the fence at Pennsylvania Motor Speedway. It literally touched the fence once in a while, and that was the fastest way around. And by the way, that I made Stock Car Magazine with that car. It's centerfold of Stock Car Magazine.
Okay.
After that World Dirt Track Championship, and I never ever thought that would ever happen. My helmet and gloves from Eldora are in the Hall of Fame there in Charlotte. I never thought that would happen. And in Pittsburgh, we have the Heinz History Center, which is part of the Smithsonian. And I'm in there also, which I didn't even know I was in there for years. And people were telling me, you need to go down there and check it out. So it's for all the sports figures in Pittsburgh. Chip Ganassi's in there and people like that.
Yeah. Chip Ganassi went the open wheel route, and a lot of people don't know Chip Ganassi was pretty good at open wheel racing until he had a crash that almost killed him. What made you decide to go the stock car route instead of going the open wheel route, being from where you're from? Because a lot of people, up north, they go the open wheel route.
Well, I really never had the opportunity. I mean, I really loved racing at NASCAR Modified. I ran that at Jennerstown and Oswego, a lot of different places, and I had a lot of fun with that open wheel car. But I never really had a chance for an Indy car or anything. But and stock cars is where my dad came from, so
okay.
So
it was in your family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that number 11 car was pretty famous. We went and beat the best in the business. And I remember at that World Dirt Track Championship, or as I said, 136 cars, and there was people in that race, came to that race from Australia and different places, from all over the world. And, I remember Reggie Vasco, I told him I wanted to go, and he said, Norm, the best in the world are there. We're not going to make the race. I said, Reggie, we're going to be in the top 5. It's because the top 5 don't have to run the qualifying races. And I remember that I'm getting into it a little heavier, but we had an in and out box in the transmission. You were allowed back then. And the first lap, the thing jumped out of gear. And I spun, and then but it was a tremendous lap. If it wouldn't have happened, I'd have been a really good lap. And then I had to go out and do my second lap, and I was on the pole. We made a big splash there. It was fun. It's just a shame that they waited or they celebrated too soon. Or I think we had a half a second pretty much on the field, and everybody else, as you were talking earlier, they had the back ends hanging out sideways and stuff, and that car was straight. It was at a 10 or 20 degree angle. That was it. And that's why it had tremendous turn speed. You get through the turns on dirt, you're going to get down the straightaway fast. And we had that figured out.
So your story is quite essentially like the old school. There's a game that a lot of people like to play. You are essentially a true from dirt to Daytona story. And like you had one of the greatest races of your life on dirt, and people know you from the dirt at Eldora. Like myself, I didn't know who you were before, and then now, the goal, the apple of your eye is the hardware at Daytona. So I mean, you're living the dream, man, right? Like, do you see it that way?
Sometimes it's a nightmare, but
well, I mean, not right now. When you're piecing everything together and you got to get your new Ilmore in the truck that was on fire not too long ago, and I mean, like at the moment, but like guys like me looking at it and we're like, yeah, you're living it. And then other people that respect you, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Mitch Stapleton doing what he does, and he's been up there and he's toured your shop, and he's had the opportunity to recently run the ARCA practice race. And yeah, man, I mean, we envy you and we love what you do. And we love you so much, Norm, that there's this thing we do for our guests, towards the end of our show, when the show is winding down. We have so much appreciation for you giving your valuable time to us that we throw the white flag and we give you a section of the show that is especially for you to shout out anybody you need to shout out. If there's sponsors from the past, present, I know the guy that's done some cooking for you, and he's had his decal on the side of your truck. So anybody you want to shout out, Josh is going to give you the white flag. There it is. This is your final lap, Norm. It's all yours.
You know how many people there are that I have to thank. I mean, I hate to forget any of these people, but again, Reggie Vasco, he's the one that saw something in me, and that started my career winning races. And Frank Perpetuo, who's the crew chief in Atlanta when I was on the pole, and Lou Civitries, who's been with me forever. He's actually a doctor, and there's Rob on my crew, Dan and Jason from Canada. Promoter, Dennis Promoter. I raced his engines for 18 years in the trucks, and he did a great job. And Shodine Holmes is out of Chicago. They're the ones that got me back into the Cup deal. They're the ones that purchased the DEI car that I ran. And John Bello from Sobe. I was actually flying in a charter with him, and that's how I ended up with that sponsorship. He was with me for 2 years, a little over 2 years, I think. That was a great relationship. And that's back, as I said, I had a budget, and I showed a lot of success having a budget. And you can't do anything without the right equipment in this business. You're playing basketball or baseball or football or whatever, it's sheer talent. But in this business, you got to have the right equipment and the right people to have success. And we've had a little bit here and there, and I really appreciate the fact that I have any fans, because there's a whole lot of races that aren't very successful that I run just because of that. But my whole life I've hoped to just enjoy this, have fun, and to say you drove around the Daytona, Talladega, I was at the Brickyard, to just be able to say that you've gone around those racetracks makes you feel good.
It's been good having you on the show, and I am proud to say I am a Norm Benning fan, as I'm sure any Norm Benning fan is proud to be a fan. So I want to thank you very much. Thank you for coming on the show, spending some time with us. And for those of you watching that have enjoyed watching Norm on the show, I want to remind y'all all to please, if you're on YouTube, to like and subscribe, share some comments with us, let us know what we're doing wrong, right. If you have any ideas for us, we're an open book. We are an also ran podcast, as it were. If you're listening on the audio realm, go ahead and rate and review. And until next time, keep your wheels down, your eyes on the ground, and Coy LaJoy, take us home.
Let me read Hebrews 12:1 real quick. Therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw up everything that hinders and the sin so easily entangles. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let's freaking go.